Morning came softly to the Viral station. Golden light from the nearest sun spread across the steel floors, reflecting on the walls like flowing water. Commander Arya Valen stood before the wide window of her quarters, looking down at the world below. She had not slept. The image of Elias breaking the cage still lived in her mind. The strength in his eyes, the silence in his anger. Behind her, the door opened with a soft hiss. Elias stepped inside, clean and dressed in a plain dark uniform. His movements were slow but steady, every step controlled. He looked stronger now, though the cuts on his arms were still healing. "You look better," Arya said. He gave a small nod. "Better than a cage," she smiled slightly. "You will not return to one while I live." Elias walked to the window. He stared at the silver rings of the station turning above the clouds. "I still do not understand what you want from me." Arya turned to face him. "Truth, that is all. Tell me what happened to your people." He was silent for a while. Then his voice came, quiet but heavy. "We were called Terrans once. We built ships that crossed black space. We believed we could stand among the stars as equals." His hands tightened. Then came the siege of Saul. The coalition promised peace. Instead, they destroyed everything. Arya listened without speaking. She had read the history once in the cold words of imperial records. Human rebellion suppressed. Sector Terra cleared. But hearing it from his mouth made the story real. "They said humanity was gone," she said softly. Elias shook his head. "Some of us survived. Hidden on mining worlds, broken colonies, old war stations. But scattered survivors are not a people. We became rumors, ghosts." Arya looked at him with quiet respect. "Then let the ghosts rise again." He turned toward her, his eyes searching her face. "You speak like you believe that." "I do," she said. "Because your kind still has something the galaxy fears, and willpower." For the first time he almost smiled. It was small, but it softened the lines of his face. A voice spoke from the intercom. "Commander Valen, the Council requests your presence in 2 hours." Arya acknowledged the call. When she looked back, Elias had crossed his arms. "The Council will not like me here." "They will accept it," she said firmly. "You are part of my mission now." "Mission?" he asked. "There is a gathering of the outer clans. They want war. I must keep them from attacking the border colonies." "And you plan to bring a human into that meeting?" "Yes," she said. "Because I want them to see what the Empire tried to erase." Elias studied her for a long moment. "Then I will come." 2 hours later, the council chamber was alive with tension. Dozens of alien leaders sat around a long table of white crystal. Their eyes turned as Arya entered, tall and composed in her silver armor. Behind her walked Elias, silent and proud. Whispers spread like a wave. "A human?" one voice hissed. "Impossible," another spat. "They should have stayed extinct." Arya ignored them. She reached the center of the room.
"This is Elias Kane," she said clearly.
"He will speak for humanity." A cold laugh came from a scaled warlord at the far end. "Speak for ghosts." Elias met the alien's golden eyes. "Ghosts do not need permission to haunt the living." The room fell silent. The warlord's smile faded. Arya took her seat and began the report, but she could feel the eyes of every leader fixed on Elias. When the meeting ended, an elder of the council approached her privately. "Commander Valen," he said, "this human is dangerous." "You risk the peace you have built." Arya's voice was calm. "Peace built on fear is no peace at all." When she left, Elias waited near the door. "They will not forgive you for bringing me here," he said quietly. "Then we will give them something greater to remember," she answered. That night, alarms broke the quiet of the station. Red lights flashed across the corridors. Arya and Elias ran to the command deck. "Report," Arya ordered. "Unknown ships approaching fast. Pirate signatures, possibly the Rak clans," the officer shouted. Elias stepped forward. "They are not pirates. That formation is military. They will strike the engines first." "How do you know?" Arya asked. "Because it's how I would do it," he said simply. She gave him a quick nod. "Then help me stop them." Within minutes, Elias took command of a tactical console. His hands moved quickly across the screen, reprogramming the defense drones. The officers watched in surprise as he redirected the energy grid to shield the outer ring. "Drones, group by 5, he said. "Focus on their lead ship. They expect scattered fire and give them precision." The station shook with the first hit. Explosions lit the sky outside, but under Elias's command, the defense network shifted like a living creature. Drone wings cut through the enemy line, slicing engines and blinding sensors. Within 10 minutes, the attackers began to retreat. Cheers filled the deck. Arya turned to Elias. "How did you know all that?" He gave a faint smile. "Old habits. Before the war, I was a strategist." She looked at him with new understanding. "Then you are not just a survivor. You are a weapon." He shook his head. "A man who remembers." When the fires were out, Arya walked with him through the quiet hall. "The council will ask how a human saved their station," she said. "Then tell them the truth," Elias replied. "That humanity still remembers how to fight." The next morning, the council met again. This time, their voices were uncertain. Some demanded that the human be exiled. Others said he had saved their lives. The debate grew louder until Arya rose from her seat. "You call him a savage," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Yet when your ships burned, it was he who protected you. You call humanity extinct, but their spirit still saves your world. Perhaps you should decide who the real savages are." No one spoke. Even the warlord from before lowered his eyes. Elias stepped forward beside her. "My world is gone," he said. "But if you choose to fight for life instead of power, then maybe humanity was not lost. Maybe it lives here, among you." The hall was silent for a long moment. Then the elder of the council spoke softly. "What do you want, human?" Elias looked at Arya, then back at them. "A future." Later, as the meeting ended, Arya and Elias stood together by the great window overlooking space. Ships moved like fireflies against the stars. Below them, Kareth Prime turned slowly, gold and blue beneath the twin suns. "They will not trust me," Elias said. "Trust takes time," she replied. "But you gave them hope. That is more powerful." He looked at her, his voice quiet. "You risked everything for me." "Why?" Arya smiled. "Because I believe the galaxy needs what humanity had. Courage, heart, and defiance. Maybe the universe forgot those things. Maybe you will remind it." Elias nodded slowly. "Then I will stay. Not as a pet, not as a relic, but as a soldier. And as my partner," Arya said softly. He met her eyes. There was no fear in them now, only steady strength. "Then we rebuild, Commander Velan," she smiled. "Together." Outside, the first human-made beacon in centuries blinked to life on the edge of the Viral station, a small light in the vast dark. It sent a message across space, simple and clear. Humanity endures. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the stars seemed to listen. The sun rose red over the jungle. Mist drifted through the giant trees like smoke, and the sound of drums filled the air. Every Amazai warrior stood ready, their faces painted in blue lines that glowed faintly under the morning light. Elias Ward stood among them, wearing armor made from the same living metal as their spears. The armor had reshaped itself to his body overnight, as if the planet itself wanted him to fit in. Chief Soraya lifted her spear high. "The great hunt begins," she shouted, and the warriors answered with a thunderous cry. Elias followed as the Amazai moved into the forest in long, silent lines. He had spent the night preparing maps and plans using the few tools that survived his crash. He could not fight the giant beast with strength alone. He needed a strategy. They marched for hours through deep valleys filled with fog. Strange plants opened like mouths and released glowing dust. In the distance, they heard roars that shook the trees. Kelra, the chief's daughter, walked beside Elias. She moved with the grace of a panther and the focus of a soldier. "Are you ready, Skyborn?" she asked quietly. "I don't think anyone can be ready for something they've never seen," he said with a faint smile, "but I'll try." By noon, they reached the edge of the shadow valleys. The ground trembled. Black scars spread across the soil, and the air smelled of metal and storm. Old ruins stood half-buried, ancient towers built by the Amazai's ancestors. Soraya stopped and turned to Elias. "This is where the Titan beast sleeps. Beyond this ridge it wakes." Elias studied the land through his cracked visor. Energy lines pulsed through the ground like veins of lightning. "It's drawing power from the planet," he said. "If we cut that flow, we weaken it." The Amazai did not understand all his words, but they trusted him. He directed small groups to plant energy spikes, fragments of his ship's power cells around the valley. When the creature moved, they would overload and explode, driving it toward the center where Elias planned to fight. As they worked, Kelra asked, "How did your people learn such things?" Humans survive by thinking fast, he replied. We build tools when we can't win with claws. When the last trap was placed, the sky turned dark. Thunder rolled across the ridges and lightning struck the ruins again and again. The air grew heavy, the ground cracked. Then it came. The Titan beast rose from beneath the valley like a mountain breaking open. Its body was covered in crystal armor that shone like molten glass. Its eyes burned with blue fire, and every breath made the earth shake. The Amazai gasped, some stepping back in fear. Elias didn't move. He shouted, "Hold the line!" The creature roared, a sound so loud it shattered branches. It lunged forward, smashing trees and rocks. Elias raised his hand and signaled. The first set of power cells exploded. The shockwave threw dirt into the air and staggered the beast. Warriors hurled their spears, striking at its legs. Kelra led a group up the slope, her spear cutting through the air with electric light. The beast turned and swept its tail, sending half the ridge crashing down. Elias pulled Kelra to safety just in time. "Still think you're ready?" she shouted, breathless. "I'm getting there," he answered, eyes fixed on the monster. They ran toward a high cliff overlooking the valley. From there, Elias could see the reactor core from his ship still glowing faintly in the wreck below. An idea struck him. If he could use that energy, he might destroy the creature once and for all. He called Soraya on the Amazai communicator she had given him. "Chief, I'm drawing it toward the crash site. Tell your people to clear the valley," Soraya's calm voice answered. "The stars guide you, Skyborn." Elias slid down the slope, Kelra right behind him. The ground shook as the Titan followed, its massive claws tearing through stone. Each step it took left burning marks on the earth. They reached the wreckage just as the reactor flickered with unstable energy. Elias ripped open the remains of the control panel. Sparks flew, cutting his hands, but he kept working. Kelra shouted over the wind, "What are you doing?" "I'm turning this thing into a bomb," he said. "When it gets close, I'll overload the core. You will die." "Not if I'm fast enough." The creature's shadow fell over them. Its huge head lowered, blue fire glowing in its throat. Elias grabbed the living metal spear Soraya had given him and charged. The creature roared and lightning burst from its mouth, striking the ground around him. He dodged, slid under one of its claws, and drove the spear deep into the creature's chest. The metal burned his hands, but he didn't stop. The spear pulsed, connecting to the reactor core. "Now," he shouted. Kelra slammed her spear into the control panel, sending power surging through the link. The valley exploded in white light. The sound was like thunder breaking apart the sky. For a long time, there was only silence. When the smoke cleared, the Titan beast was gone. Only a vast crater remained, glowing faintly where the reactor had melted into the ground. Kelra staggered to her feet, coughing. She looked around for Elias. He was nowhere to be seen. She searched the ruins for hours, calling his name, but found only his broken visor lying in the mud. She picked it up and pressed it to her chest. Tears filled her eyes, though she did not cry. Amazai warriors did not weep during the hunt. When they returned to the forest city, Soraya stood before the people. "The Skyborn has fulfilled the prophecy," she said. "The Titan is gone. The world lives." The Amazai raised their spears to the sky in honor of Elias Ward. They carved his name into the heart tree of the village so no one would forget. But Kelra did not believe he was gone. Days later, during another storm, she climbed to the highest platform and looked into the dark clouds. Lightning flashed, and for a second she saw something impossible. A small signal of light pulsing high above, like a code. She ran to Soraya. "Mother, the sky speaks!" Together they watched as the signal blinked again. 3 long pulses, 3 short, 3 long. It was the human distress code for survival. Soraya's eyes widened. "He lives," she whispered. Far above the planet, a Terran rescue ship detected the faint signal. The technician stared at the screen and called out, "Captain, we've found something. Human ID Elias Ward, status alive." The crew cheered. They set a course for the jungle world below. On the planet's surface, Kelra stood in the rain, watching the streak of light descending from the clouds. The people gathered behind her. For the first time in generations, the Amazai saw a ship return from the stars. She smiled softly and said, "The hunt never ends. It only changes." As the ship landed and its ramp opened, a shadow appeared through the mist. A man in broken armor walking slowly but alive. The Amazai fell silent. Kelra stepped forward. Elias looked around at the people who had once been strangers but were now his family. "Told you," he said with a tired smile. "I'm getting better at this." The chief bowed her head. Welcome home, Skyborn. And as thunder rolled across the horizon, the stars above seemed to glow brighter, as if the universe itself was watching, knowing that one human had turned a forgotten prophecy into hope.